Father, in Jesus' name, we are so grateful for the opportunity we have to look at your universe and your creation, to understand it better, to look at counterpoint views as well. And I pray that this information that we discuss and present will be helpful to everyone. We just thank you and praise you for all that you do in Jesus' name. And everyone said,
Amen.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, yeah, man. No. That's almost the same. All right, I want to call attention to some of these. This is the biggest one up here because it's got lots of pictures. And I'm not sure I can find it, but I think I can. Yeah. There it is. This is a picture, come on in, of a flash frozen mammoth surrounded by tropical plants in the Arctic Circle near the North Pole. True story. See the green stuff there at his feet. Yeah. Siberia. And it's just, to me, that's pretty interesting because that, I think we're good. We're a couple of chairs short, so I think for now we're okay. More start flooding in, come and run it. Okay, so they found this in a dig, and the only way you flash freeze something is if it gets cold very rapidly and unexpectedly. And I'm here to tell you that if it got cold slowly, that animal would not have hung out very long. He would have headed somewhere. Trouble is, there was nowhere to go. Now, we're going to kind of talk about some of this. Walt Brown discusses what he calls the hydroplate theory. There are others. You were talking yesterday, we ran into each other at the coffee shop, and there's a theory about compression in time due to gravity waves. You know, they're realizing gravity is waves just like light waves and everything else now. And at the beginning of everything, as things started expanding when God created, that caused things to happen in a different time frame and would stretch time and space. We already knew that. Einstein was helpful with that in that regard. But what happened is when things started going kablooey, tectonic plates began moving around, crashing into each other. You'll notice that along the western coast and the eastern area of the United States are mountain ranges. And then nice big long flat lands in between. And along one edge of South America, more mountain ranges and so on. Seems that mountain ranges show up at the edge of continents because when tectonic plates run into each other, they go crumple just like cars do. That's called mountains now. See? And when that stuff started happening, when God caused the flood, so the theory goes, a great deal of tectonic activity was going on, and the mantle, which is sort of held in place by the enormous pressures on it, began to liquefy and come up, create literally a nuclear winter, only produced by volcanic ash and so on and so forth. And a lot of stuff happened at once. We're going to talk about this in detail. But that picture there is, for me, very striking because animals just don't get, what they do is they fall on the ground and little tiny animals called bacteria eat them, right? And plants the same thing. So we're going to talk about stuff like that. This is an interesting little book, Subversive Essays on Evolution, Law, and Culture. And he's saying that objections, that is to creation, sustained, a lawyer's perspective. We were just talking about this. Bill Nye, the science guy, had it out with Mr. Ham. You ever heard of Ken Ham? A lot of stuff on creation and so on. He's got an enormous website with PowerPoint presentations to go with stuff. He's got some videos there and so on and so forth. Does a lot of work with more recent, I wouldn't call them modern, but in recorded history records of animals that certainly appear to be similar to dinosaurs, if not dinosaurs still hanging out. This is an interesting little book, and I include it not necessarily for this. Genes, Memes, and the Meaning of Light is the subtitle. Alistair McGrath wrote this book, Dawkins God. You know who Dawkins is, right? He is an uber atheist and runs around saying how science proves there's no God. He's one of the proponents of that. This is an interesting one. The Creationist, the Evolution of Scientific Creationism. Isn't that a cute title? Subtitle. The evolution, get it? The evolution of. Okay. Anyway, I bought it just for the subtitle. It turns out to be a pretty good book. You ever heard of Norman Geisler? Anything he writes is pretty solid. He's a conservative Christian scholar. This one is, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. So it deals more with the apologetic question, whether Christianity is true or not, and so on and so forth. But anyway, it's a good book. I've got a lot more stuff. This is what?
Is this like a library that we can check out?
These are my books.
I'm just saying, you brought it.
Thank you.
Look at that.
It's one of those give a book, take a book libraries.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what
right.
I
Yeah. Put down a comic book and run off with this guy. No, thank you. All right. Now, you've all heard of Lee Strobel, right? The Case for a Creation. He deals specifically with the issues of creation from a lawyer's perspective, evidentiary information as well. This is an interesting little guy, Darwin's Black Box. Anybody ever heard of this? Any idea what it's about?
A black box.
Okay then.
Secrets you didn't want people to know.
Very good. You know, one time I was in an adult Sunday school class, and I was, we were in Springfield. I was going to seminary and working there in the Division of Foreign Missions. So we went to a church, and the Sunday school teacher got up there and said, one Sunday, he says, well, you know, I was told when I was a kid in Sunday school that 80% of the time the correct answer to any question asked in Sunday school is Jesus. And everybody sort of chuckled. And then I made it a point from then on to answer dumb questions that obviously weren't Jesus. Jesus? Anyway. Not that I'm that way. Anyway, so Darwin's Black Box is about microbiology. And it talks about the amazingly complex structures and functions in the subcellular level. We're talking things that are made of molecules that do incredibly complex functions, and any one of which, if it's lost, that cell becomes non-functional. So it's pretty interesting. So, you know, so what?
Light reading.
What?
Light reading.
Light?
Yes.
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 Yeah. Okay then. Well, I'm not sure how light it is, but anyway. See, one of the examples I was going to give has to do with light.
Oh, well, then,
So-
see, there you go. That was a segue.
And there are subcellular, well, we're not going to talk about that right now, but there are subcellular structures in the eye near the optical nerve that literally process every single photon. You know what a photon is, right? How much does a photon weigh? Neither do they. No, it's not zero. It has mass.
It's one.
Well, it's a pretty small number, and there's a lot of zeros in front of it. It's 0.00000. Anyway. So, but it has, we can actually measure the impact a photon of light has. And a photon enters the cell, and it is processed through the cell, sent out to the next cell, which eventually gets to the optic nerve and is sent to the brain and assembled with millions of other similar photon responses. And the brain processes that into light and then into an image. I mean, we don't just see stuff. And the way that Darwin tried to explain it was, there's this primordial ooze, and then something got zapped by lightning and crawled out, and pretty soon it needed to survive because so it could tell light and dark, and then a mucus thing formed here, and it got more specific with the light and dark, and eventually it became what we know as an eyeball.
Ew.
Not so much. So there is a huge gap of, shall we say, a leap to a conclusion that is not supported by good science. So you have when this book came out, a flurry of protagonists against it came out with their positions, and you can find very complex, Well, it could have happened, and this might have happened, and then the suggestion, then it might have happened here, and then this might have resulted in, to come up with all these complex forms. We'll talk about that sort of thing too. This is one I mentioned in the beginning, this big one I passed around, is one of the textbooks I use for this course. This is another one, Bones of Contention. I required a research paper on a topic introduced in this book of the student's choice for here. This is very good. The creationist assessment of the human fossils, Marvin Lubenow wrote it. There's a, oh yeah, here we go. I mentioned this last week. Did I? Maybe I didn't. Okay, pronounce after me. Australopithecus.
Australopithecus.
Very good. You just said a 6-syllable word. All right. See those guys? One of them is your uncle.
What?
Now this is a National Geographic map on the other side. Showing a dig in Africa along here. And they discovered fossils there. They discovered the Australopithecus, the modern, anatomically modern Homo sapiens is at the top. We've got the, this one's the Neanderthal up here. Let's see, this is the Homo erectus. This is Homo erectus also in Java. Let's see. And down here we have Australopithecus afarensis, and this guy is Homo habilis, Coelbifora, and this guy here is the Australopithecus africanus. Now, the big puncture in the tire for evolutionists is that it turns out Cro-Magnon and several of these others, including Neanderthal, all lived and worked and did whatever they did at the same time, many of them. They overlapped. They weren't a discrete, this one came along, then they went away and gave way to these guys, and then they went away and gave way to these guys all at once. So that's a problem for creation or for evolutionists, because they want to tell you that everything sort of went its way, and then at some point these guys gave up and the other guys took over. Not so much. Didn't work that way. And so that's the kind of stuff we're going to try and shed some light on. See if I can figure out where I put my stuff. Our secretary in the church was kind enough to make copies of these so that everybody had one. That's not what I want. There we go. I think I better read off one of these. Oh. Master. It says right here, originals, not masters. Okay. And these are the ones that are on the floor.
So you're just throwing me around the floor if you don't care about it?
Try it.
The porch was.
But I do care about it, so it's only like I don't care about it.
So you're trying to reverse psychology.
Oh, you're trying to do reverse psychology.
To the
All right.
paper.
I've been told that my whole life.
They were laid out.
My name was Don Brown. And guess what I got called when I was a kid? Charlie Brown and Donald Duck. It was great. All right. Anybody here have that issue? I
My
can't
children
quite.
have made up something, but that's not when I was a child.
Everybody gets called something.
Oh,
I
yeah.
got that.
All right,
They're
so
called Don Brown.
today we're going to look at some. What was that? Okay, what did he say?
Nothing. Please.
Nothing.
Please go
Nice,
forward.
Really?
Please go forward, yes.
Yeah, you're good. Okay.
Joel.
All right, so last week we left off talking about some other stuff. I'll have this better organized next week. I came in and found this pile of copies made by our church secretary, Rory. She does a terrific job. She said I could just email her the master, the whole big document, and I did divide it up into 10 sessions. And so I picked them up this morning, and I'm just sifting through. Next week I'll have them in discrete envelopes and everything will be all hunky-dory. All right? All right, so I think we left off talking about inertia, described as a tendency of objects in the universe to keep going if they're moving and stop and stay stopped if they're stopped and so on and so forth. So we're talking about failure to account for incongruities. And so there are some things that didn't really happen that make sense according to those laws. One of the examples that we'll get to, but we'll probably have to read a little bit here. By the way, these are yours to keep and take notes on. I hope you have room for notes. If you had a question, and I want to make sure everybody understands this, if I do not make what I'm trying to say clear, please, I hope you have slip-on shoes so you can slip one off and throw it at me or something to get my attention. No, really, don't throw shoes. It'll get nasty in here pretty fast. But if you have a question, if you don't get what I'm saying, please stop me and ask the question. I would much rather stop, because chances are if you have a question, somebody else has the same or similar question. And so you're going to help somebody else out by asking the question, unless it's about reverse psychology. All right, so there is a failure to account for the apparent immensity of the universe. That's where we're starting today. We're talking about things that don't really work out so well for them. So present models of the Big Bang Theory contend that the explosion took place 17.7 billion years ago. At this age, it is hypothesized would account for the universe as we presently observe it. And of course, scientists are crippled by the fact that if they can't see it, they can't figure it out. It works with empirical science and empirical evidence. You have to have something you can observe. The problem is when we try and then extrapolate from those sorts of things and make conclusions about non-physical things like spirit and soul and God and stuff like that. But anyway, we'll talk about that eventually. So it's how we observe the universe. However, there are problems with the age of the cosmos. The University of California, Pat McCarthy, observed a supernova believed to be the genesis of a new galaxy. What is especially significant is the supernova was 12 billion light years away when observed. A team of scientists attending the International Astronomical Union in Boston in '88 announced they had taken a picture of the most distant galaxy yet seen by man, which they unceremoniously designated 4C41.17. Isn't that an exciting name? Mm-hmm. They couldn't call it Ralph's house or something like that. This galaxy was discovered using radio waves confirmed visually by the Kitt Peak National Observatory near Tucson. Once they spotted it, they knew where to look, right? So that galaxy is said to be 15 billion light years from Earth. Other astronomical measurements of distances to the most remote galaxies, quote, have yielded distance estimates as large as 10 trillion to 20 trillion, or 1,000 million billion, yeah, 20 trillion light years for the most distant galaxies detectable. The problem with these measurements is that they do not seem to allow enough time for the universe to be seen in the state it is currently in. If it's 17.7 billion years old, we wouldn't be able to see anything further away than 17.7 billion light years. You beginning to see the paradox here?
The problem is that the more knowledge man accumulates, so the more we see, the more knowledge we get.
Yeah.
They have to account for it some way.
We have to do something with it, right?
Right, and so that's the problem. Is as soon as more knowledge is accumulated by the community,
Mm-hmm.
they have to they have to come up with something different to explain it.
Thus the title of this section, Failure to Account.
Right.
Exactly. All right, so the problem with all this, they do not seem to allow enough time for the universe to be in the state it is currently in. Note, starlight reaching the earth is no problem for fiat creationists. Who knows what a fiat is?
A car.
What?
A car.
Somebody was gonna
That is
say
correct.
it. Everybody was thinking
Okay,
it.
he's supposed to say it. He's a smart aleck and his apprentice back here.
I know. I totally know. Well, because you said it last time.
What?
There's someone who believes that the universe it was just already in the way that it was now.
There you go.
Very good, yes.
Good job.
All right.
Wow, thank you.
Excellent job. All right. See, these guys, you know that show? Are you smarter than as smart as a fifth grader or something like that?
I'm a fourth grader.
You're a fourth grader. So are you as smart as a fifth grader?
I
All
think
right.
I'm a little less.
I think you're a
smart.
little too. Oh, wait a minute. What? There was more to that sentence?
I'm a little less smarter.
Oh, a little less smarter. You know what? Smart has nothing to do with age or accumulation of knowledge.
That is so indeed.
Smart has to do with what you do with knowledge at any age. All right? Also, smart is not necessarily the same as wise. Wisdom has to do with how you apply what you know. So there's a whole hierarchy of what we know, what we can know, what we don't know. That's what we talked about last time, how we deal with different kinds of knowledge and which kinds of knowledge get us closer to understanding whether there is or can be a God and so on and so forth. Very theoretical. This is a lot more practical. It's dealing with stuff if you go into public schools that you guys are getting hammered with. And, this will give you information that'll help you process that in context with other information that's out there. Because they tell you what supports what they think, but they don't always tell you what is. Does that make sense? Okay. So, God formed so fiat creationists believe that God created the universe as it is. So if they're further away than 17.7 billion light years, doesn't mean we can't see them because it hasn't gotten here yet. What it means is God made it in the state it's in, and that light was instantly created on its way to us. I mean, that's sort of the assumption we take. God can do whatever he wants to do, and that's sort of the fiat creationist view. So God formed the entire biosphere, that's all living organisms, in a mature, fully functioning state. Right? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that the fiat creationist that's stating that he would have created Adam as a full-grown man, not
Yeah.
as a baby.
Right. So we don't have to worry about chickens and eggs and all that stuff. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? The chicken. Because God created the chicken to lay the egg and then sit on it. An egg can't sit on itself. You can make a stack of eggs, but they wouldn't keep each other very warm. So,
Well, there's that solved.
there you go. I'm just
Now
saying.
you know.
Proof. See, for evolutionists, they have a huge problem with the question of the chicken and the egg. A huge one.
True.
We don't have any problem with that. If God created, he created chickens. And then he created omelets. I mean eggs, yeah. All right. Yeah. I like omelets. All right. So, well, we're going to get into it. Okay. So God formed the entire biosphere, that's all living organisms, in a mature, functioning state. That is, God created mature, fully functioning, seed-bearing plants, not just sprigs or seeds in the ground. In order for plants to grow, the dirt had to be full of nutrients, including humus, organic matter in soil stemming from deep and decomposed vegetable matter. Plants would not have grown in sterile, pristine dirt. Has anybody seen The Martian?
Just thought about that, actually.
Interesting take on it from a purely evolutionist point of view, I guess. And he realized that there is no plant life on Mars, so he had potatoes and he grew little eyes, gouged out their eyes and put them in the ground, and potatoes, oh, I can't see. No, just kidding. They didn't really say that. They kept to themselves about it. And then he had to fertilize them somehow.
Yeah.
And he did it manually, so to speak.
Indeed.
And that enabled them to grow in a otherwise sterile environment. Now, I don't know if that would really work, but it certainly is feasible. And it certainly acknowledges the problem. It doesn't do any good to plant a seed in dead, fertile dirt. So God created the world and the biosphere in a fully functional state. Can you live with that? It answers a lot of questions that right now, at least, evolutionists can't figure out. I mean, how long does it take for there to become a situation where a plant grows a seed? If we started primordial ooze and a lightning strike, right? And how long does it take for these long protein molecules that eventually coagulated into some sort of DNA and RNA and all that stuff to get together and say, hey, let's grow an eyeball, let's crawl out of the muck, let's go plant a seed. All right.
So eyeballs
so-
are made out of dirt.
What's that?
Are you saying the eyeballs are made out of mud and dirt?
Well, my Bible says God created.
I know, but I'm just saying, so you're saying that they're saying eyeballs are made out of dirt.
They would say that stuff formed out of other stuff. And no, don't shush, that's good, that's fine.
No, he was putting the chair on his shoe.
Oh, stop it.
I bought that shoe.
I didn't even know you bought the shoe. She's thinking dollar signs for the shoe here. I'm thinking, it didn't bother me, but a dollar bothers her wallet, you got it. Okay. See, aren't you glad you sat up front? He's a liar. No. All right, so he's actually enjoying this a little bit too much, but that's okay. I'm enjoying it too. So, yeah, they would say it one thing produced another. Okay, and we talked theoretically about this in the other session. We're talking about the infinite regression of locomotives, for example, and a primal cause for all things, and how things go from being possible to realized, and so on and so forth. So I guess you could say, yeah, dirt or something like it. The problem is, well, how did this primordial ooze even form with the proper mix of amino acids and all that stuff if it was just lying around in sterile, inert stuff? There is absolutely no understanding of how that can happen, and certainly no ability in a scientific experiment to reproduce those conditions.
So is there an evolutionary timeline theory from the beginning?
17.7 billion years.
From the beginning
Big Bang.
of, right, but from the beginning of when there was something to when there was feasible life as we,
Well, there we're down into the millions of years.
so they're saying it took literally millions of years
It
for
took billions of years to produce the situation, and then the situation took millions of years to get the first little guy to get zapped by lightning and start doing whatever he did to start everything.
So billions to millions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the evolution. So, was there more to the question? You're kind of rolling your eyes. There must be something you're thinking about.
No. No, I'm
No?
good. I'm good. We'll just do it over lunch.
Okay. All right, so God created mature, fully functioning animals capable of bearing young, not just babies. Because somebody's got to take care of the babies, right? It is consistent, therefore, to postulate that God created the entire physical universe in the same kind of mature, fully functioning state. The Earth's atmosphere that would have been stabilized from the beginning, starlight, would have already been reaching the Earth on day 4 when stars were created. Does that make sense? All right. Now, any questions about this that we've talked about so far? You know, when we touch on the fossil record, one of the things we're going to find is the absence, 100% complete absence of any transitional forms. Who knows what a transitional form is?
Isn't that the missing link?
Yes, what they call the missing link.
Like when they said that from like somebody that was breathing the oxygen from the water, and then they came up on land and
Right.
feet, and they don't have that.
Yeah, one day the fish, hey, let's go for a walk. Okay, they can do that. Well, grow a foot instead of a fin, you dunce. So they grow feet and come up on, you know, I don't know. It just, I don't want to minimalize or whatever, but they minimalize creation, so it's okay for a couple of laughs. But they take serious positions. The problem is they don't have serious data to back a lot of it up. One of which in the fossil record is the complete lack of any transitional form. I mean, we've got trilobites, but we don't have a transitional form. We've got fish, but we don't have transitional forms. I mean, they just aren't there. Period. Everything in the fossil record appears abruptly. Yes, sir?
Didn't they find some kind of alligator, something that they thought was a mix between amphibian and a mammal? Wasn't there something, have you heard of?
Is that recent?
Mm,
I'm not sure.
5 years.
I'm not aware of that.
I'll have to research
I went to
on
Texas, so I wasn't,
Okay.
That was terrible. I love Texas. My wife and I went down there for 3 years. We were here for a long time, 9 years. I taught, among other things, Mormonism 101 and some other things, and 12 times into 9 years. Then we went to Texas, and there wasn't a need for that, but I did a lot of teaching down there at a big church, and then came back here to Utah a few years ago. So I'll just, that's my black hole answer. I don't know, I was in Texas for a while. All right, no, I have not heard of that. Anybody ever heard of Piltdown Man? Yeah? What does that mean? Does it say?
Well, but I think, wasn't it debunked though?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
It was like a really short guy. It kind of looked like maybe a caveman, but
Yeah.
had some features of modern day. But then they realized it was a hoax and someone had put different things
Right,
together from
exactly.
different skeletons.
Yes, some guy who wanted to prove evolution decided he would take it upon himself to put together and bury some already found and discovered fossil parts, sort of like a bare bones Frankenstein construction, and said, look at me, I found Piltdown Man, yay! And then they looked at him and began to realize that they didn't come from the same things.
Area.
You know. Remember Lucy?
Yep.
Not the one in the sky with diamonds. Lucy in the sky with diamonds.
Sorry.
Okay, I won't go there.
This is church.
What? It certainly is, yes. But Lucy turns out to be somebody where they found it up in Michigan, I think it was, or somewhere up north. And they postulated, look, there we go, it's a transitional form. Turns out it was a jawbone, literally, of a donkey, or a portion of a jawbone. They thought it was, so, you know, scientists, interestingly to me, in movies are often held up as the paragon of virtue and ethical sound thinking in movies and in real life. You ever notice that in movies? They go to the scientists to find out the ethical thing to do. Scientists are as subject to being, to falsifying information as anybody else. They're so convinced of their idea, it's okay to falsify data for it. So that's a problem.
Sounds like a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, failure, another failure to propose a cause for something other than nothing. So people universally observe that there is never a case where something comes from nothing. The Latin term for that is ex, which means out of, nihilo, which means nothing. Out of nothing, ex nihilo. We have an entire couple of generations of, well, maybe not a couple, but we have a lot of people who are coming into our culture who are nihilists and narcissists. And that is a very dangerous proposition. Because narcissists, anybody know what a narcissist is?
All about themselves.
All about me. I'm the center of the universe. And a nihilist means I'm the center of the universe, but nothing matters. So life doesn't matter, death doesn't matter, nothing matters. See, ex nihilo. That's a problem. History doesn't matter, and so on and so forth. I mean, we're talking about these kinds of things, but there are all kinds of other ways in our culture that those things are beginning to have a very serious impact. Truth doesn't matter. It's what truth appears to be, or the narrative that we want to support that matters.
Can I make a point on that?
Absolutely.
So I just found on Arizona State University's website, the Institute of Human Origins, it talks about Lucy. And it talks about the history of the excavation, and their conclusion at the end is, how do we know that this is from one individual? And since there are several hundred fragments of hominid bones found at the Lucy site, there were no duplication of bones, so even a single duplication would have debunked it, but because it was all different bones, this proves it was the same person. And then it goes on to tell what she would have looked like there are no hints.
Oh yeah, they take a little piece and then they... She was pretty ugly anyway, but I mean, you know.
Seriously, I mean, this is a university that just
I know!
leaves out all of this stuff.
It's kind of problematic. I mean, so, all right, we won't go down that road any further. But you get what I'm saying, right? It is a problem in our culture in general. And I pointed out last week that science originally was people endeavoring to understand God's creation. And somehow, around the time Darwin came along, his teachings were hijacked that God doesn't exist. He was actually approached by representatives of an organization to please say this stuff. We can't wait for your book to come out so we can do this. I don't think he really wanted his book to be used for that purpose, but it was ultimately used, and today we are bludgeoned with it at every turn. So narrative in our culture is everything, regardless of truth and evidence. That's a problem. And that's a problem when it comes to creation versus evolution, just as much as it is in our culture. All right, so people universally observe that there is never a case where something comes from nothing. With Big Bang cosmology, it seems like we have one of two options. Either something came from nothing, or matter is really eternal, as is the case of one version of the so-called oscillating universe theory. All right. The prevailing religious culture in which we live in Utah, is anybody current or former members of that prevailing culture? What do they teach? Do you know what they teach about the universe and the age of the universe and origins and all that stuff?
They believe in evolution.
They believe in evolution, yeah.
Guided evolution.
Guided okay.
You know,
Yeah.
God helped it along, but...
And which came first, God or dirt? That's a weird way to say it. But they actually believe that matter pre-exists God, because their God is not eternal. That is, their God has a beginning. And their gods all have to learn and grow and adjust and so on and so forth. Right?
Yep.
Okay, I mean, I don't wanna
They have to gain
make anybody nervous, I'm sorry?
They have to
Gain godhood, yeah, yeah. So, you know, they are among those who believe that stuff was here and then something happened. And I told you about my friend. I asked him, said, does anybody know what caused the Big Bang? He said, well, of course, nobody knows that, so I know. He said, what? I said, God. He said, man, God's your answer for everything. So, you know, it's, in a way that's true. At the time, it was a humorous interaction between us. But the bottom line is, Big Bang presupposes one or the other. Either something happened from nothing. Now, there was a guy, and for the life of me, I've not been able to find it. I read it at Analog, Science Fiction, Science Fact. Anybody ever seen that? What? No science fiction junkies here? Am I the only one?
I've heard that they say some things like in Star Trek that when they first were talking about it, now we have it and stuff like that. So
Well, Analog actually is a magazine, it's a periodical, and they have a lot of science fiction, and then they have scientific articles as well. So yeah, there's probably some of that in there. But one of the articles that caught, and then I lost my copy of it about 13 moves later. I was in the military. But one article had a guy by a cosmologist out of Toronto, University of Toronto. And he was involved in developing mathematical models that would fit and explain observed realities out in the universe. Like when they saw pulsars and quasars going, and they saw out there blip, 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 blip. Yay, we found intelligent life. And they found out, no, it's not. It's like an orbiting star, a little dark star, and it make it look like a blip, but it was very regular. Well, you know, so anyway, you have to keep digging until you find, and then they have to build the mathematical models that would explain that, and so on and so forth. And in this article, this guy was not a creationist. He was a steely-eyed, evolutionary, blah, blah guy, right? There is a mathematical model that allows for a quantum event where at the beginning there was neither energy nor matter. Now, you've heard about the law of the conservation of matter and energy, right? It says that there's a steady state amount, the steady state universe. So in total, there is the exact same amount of matter and energy in the universe at any given time. Now, we learned how to split the atom and create immense amounts of energy. That didn't change the amount of either, it simply shifted from one to the other. Right? That's the idea. So in this article explained that there is a mathematical model that they finally arrived at due to all kinds of observational information and so on, that allows for a quantum event. You know what a quantum theory is? Quantum theory? No? Okay, quantum physics. Anyway, a quantum event has to do with matter and energy and the interim states and so on and so forth, among other things. But this model allows for a quantum event where neither energy nor matter existed, and then suddenly something actually comes into existence. Mathematically, it is provable and fits observed reality. They just can't reproduce it in the lab. Now, there have been difficult to understand and explain events in colliders and other things where they can, for a gazillionth of a second, create what they call antimatter. But it doesn't last very long, and they haven't figured out how to place it in something that would keep it there so they could observe its properties. And if antimatter, in theory, touches anything, you have this huge explosion, and it would eat the whole universe, or at least the local section. You know, so I mean, there are a lot of anomalies that we can't explain, and this mathematical model, they suddenly realized, allows for such an event, which sounds to me awful like God might create something, or something might come into existence. Yes, sir?
If you're saying that it could destroy part of the universe, then why are we messing with it?
Well, that's the theory. That's a good question. it would not be the first time in human history or experience that our curiosity killed the scientist or whatever. I mean, we get into stuff and start doing things, and all of a sudden, you know, I mean, the first thing, okay, well, I don't want to get into politics and all this stuff, but what happened when they began following this whole E equals MC squared and the steady state and et cetera, and began to look into fission and fusion. Fission is dividing and fusion is bringing together. Atomic fission and atomic fusion. And the next thing you know, they figured out if they could do it just right, they could make things go boom in a big way, right? And do you know the general structure of an atomic weapon?
Yes, we're reading that book right now.
Are you really? Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what critical mass is. Okay. And critical mass basically is where you have enough mass of radioactive material in one place at one time that it flashes with an enormous explosion because that amount of matter is instantly turned into pure energy, right? And that's the basics for what an atomic weapon does. And they started with the atomic bomb, and then they went from there to hydrogen bombs and all kinds of stuff. So what they found out was they can't contain it. They still haven't figured out. Now, some guy 20 years ago or so claimed to have figured out fusion, cold fusion theory, and have something, but you know they couldn't reproduce it in the lab. You can claim it all you want, but you got to actually be able to reproduce it and do it. So
And that's supposed to be clean.
supposed to be clean because it keeps everything in instead of going out, right? So, you know, we're real good at blowing stuff up. We're not so good at cleaning stuff up. So it wouldn't be the first time that scientists or whoever did something foolish and all of a sudden it turned around and bit them on the nose.
And everybody died.
Yeah. So now I don't think they're really looking to do that, and the theories usually are speculations about end state and what might happen ultimately, but this little place is fairly carefully contained and it doesn't exist long enough to do any of that stuff. So, and it's put in place. They have very powerful magnetic fields and everything to keep it suspended and away from touching anything material. Anyway, so can something come from nothing?
No.
We believe it can, right?
Laws of science.
In a way, but the problem with that statement is the come from part. Can something appear where there was nothing? Yes. But it doesn't come from nothing. You see what you see that maybe it seems like a fine point of distinction. But do you see what I'm getting at? Okay, so can something come from nothing? Universal human experience informs us that everything that exists as we know it has a creative cause. In order to maintain that everything came from nothing, quotes and quotes, we would have to first overturn universal human experience and observation, and second, propose a model that is more incredible than that a divine being created everything. So we would reject the idea of something coming from nothing in favor of the idea of an intelligent creator, a divine creator, right? And that's really what we're talking about here. All right, so can matter be eternal? Although infinite numbers exist theoretically, there is both philosophical and empirical evidence. You know the difference between philosophical is the love of sophistication, philosophos, basically, right from the Greek. So when we talk about philosophy, philos is love for something, and sophia is to do with wisdom. So philosophy is a love of wisdom. And empirical evidence. So philosophical evidence, we can argue and come up with models and constructs and philosophical explanations, but empirical evidence, they don't always match up. So there is both philosophical and empirical evidence that infinite numbers do not exist in known reality. Now let's see, what grade are you in?
8.
8?
Safe.
Safe, okay.
I'm in 6th grade.
Yeah, well, school just started, still getting used to the no S. 'Cause you had 2 years, 6 and 7, with an S in the front, right?
Right.
So, and what grade are you in?
Safe.
Safe.
All right. Have you guys learned about irrational numbers and that sort of thing yet? Are they teaching you that? Okay.
That's old.
That's old news.
Yeah, it's old news. Okay, cool. Yeah, we on it.
They're way beyond that now.
I'm sorry, I didn't say that out loud. Did I say that out loud?
I think you did.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so irrational numbers, there are philosophical ideas proposed about how to deal with these things, you know. Does, what is the square root of 1, 1? What is the square root of 0.9? Oops. The only reasonable alternative then is to postulate God, someone who caused matter to come into existence. All right. So now let's deal, any questions so far? What?
I'm gonna have a question. Well, right as you turn the top.
The place name was Genesis chapter 1.
Oh.
Ah! I got there before you said anything. What's the question?
Okay, so just below here, on number A, I had read a little bit ahead and said, looked at the day 3 of creation and stars did not appear until day 4, and then read the bottom line. Well, if stars didn't appear until day 4 and plant life did, that is one of the problems. But also, wouldn't it cause another problem to realize that if a current star is a light year away, the closest one is a light year away, it would take a full-on year to get light to the Earth before we would actually have light from another star in the universe. So it wouldn't light up the sky, it would only have the sun in the current state.
Okay. Did you miss everything we said about fiat creation? God can create a universe where everything is fully functioning. Light is already there. Doesn't have to take time to get there, right? And so, given a physical scientist's point of view, you're correct. That would be a problem. For God, that's not a problem. There's another question, and that's the day thing.
The day.
Genesis 1:9, the dry ground appeared on day 3. 1:2, plants appeared on day 3. Then on day 4, the stars were created. That doesn't mean there was no light. It means there was no sun, moon, and stars.
Yeah, because the first thing God created
It
was
was light.
light.
Yeah.
It just doesn't say what.
There was the light and the dark, and he divided the two, and etc. And then later did the star thing, and the moon thing, and the sun thing. And then the moonbeams suddenly came into the world, and we all became happy in the same
And
way.
then the people, that's even more.
What, moonbeams?
No, the thing that God created a light, but it wasn't, or it had light, but it wasn't stars.
Right.
I've known that for like
It was
50 years.
diffuse, and then he separated it, and then he put things in charge of it. Sun was in charge of the day, and the moon was in charge of the night.
Which, if you think about it,
I don't want to think, I'm too
does,
tired.
I know, well, do it anyway. Where's the scientific evidence for what was the light that was separated, I mean, from the dark, that wasn't the sun?
Big Bang.
Right, and instantly we have a sun, so of course that's where
Well,
the
it wasn't
light-
instant, it took
And-
billions and billions of
Right,
years.
right. Yeah, I know. It's amazing to me, reading Genesis, that there was light that was separated from dark. And the light that we know it is, of course, the sun. That's all a human has ever known, is the seasons that come from the sun. I can't wait to get to heaven and figure out the light that is separated from the dark that's not the sun. To me, that's a really cool thing.
Okay, everybody brains intact? Okay, what about the
You never
both of
know.
them? I never know?
We never know.
Well, we never know. You don't know if your brain is intact. Okay, that's probably true. In general, for all of us, I mean.
That's it.
But sometimes you hear things and your brain's just like, whoa.
Mhm.
You never know.
We don't have time. There's a question I would love to ask, but we don't have time for it. But I literally had a guy do that. He says, oh man, he rolled out of a chair on the floor. He was a little demonstrative. He now has a master's of divinity, and he's planted a church since then in Japan. He used to attend this church, and now he's over in Germany. And his wife is in the military in the Air Force, so he kind of traipses around. He's a chaplain, a captain in the Army. Kind of cool. All right, now let's see if I can find this without taking a lot of time.
We could have kept it for lunch. We could have kept it for lunch.
We could have.
I don't know, does anybody else think that that's a cool thought?
I think anything that God does is pretty remarkable. Just like how something can be out of time, how he can be out of time and we're in time, and he can see everything from when he created it all the way to the end till he creates the new heaven and the new earth. I mean, that to me blows my mind.
Yeah.
You know, that he has that much vision and can see everything. And, you know, I mean, when science, when every time I've ever heard this, I mean, I've been raised in the church since I was 7 days old. And so it's easy for me.
And on the seventh day, he went to church.
There you go. And it's just easy for me to go and say, when people try to make all this big thing into all this and make things so complicated, it's so easy. It's God.
Yeah.
I mean, the finite thing of making a butterfly and how complicated just a butterfly is, let alone to try to sit there and try to make it complicated. No, God doesn't need to make it complicated. He just did it because he can.
Right, you can.
Also,
Well-
but the sun isn't light.
No,
That's
it
the thing.
produces light.
It's right. So I
There's
mean,
a
he can
result.
create light without having the sun.
True.
Because the sun does not equal light.
Right.
But
It's not the same thing.
But like, you know, it
He's the
could
light
be
in the
like a
new
big
heaven.
sun that
He
created
is
like
the light source.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they
He
say in
is
the
the
Bible
one-
in heaven. Yeah, he's going to be the light.
In
so.
Romans, it says he is the one who casts no shadow in turning.
Yes.
Because there is no light that would cast a shadow when he's standing in front of it.
Right.
well, the light could be a sun, but it's just
No, light comes from something.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be anything. Could be
I
a
know.
flashlight, a big one.
Right.
The
I'm
light,
saying it could be a sun, because you're always comfortable, right? So then, imagine how cool it would be to see.
What does me being comfortable have to do with anything?
Because the sun is incredibly hot.
there you go.
Well, that's true, yeah. We talked about the requirements for just exactly the way it is to work and survive.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it wouldn't support life.
Exactly.
All
But
right.
like in heaven, you know, it's gonna be cool.
But sun isn't light.
I know.
So what do you, I'm not getting what you're saying.
But guess what? If you try and walk on the sun, you'll probably
You'd burn.
right when you get there.
Even asbestos shoes wouldn't help much.
Yeah, no.
Even
So-
if you're in a space suit,
Dawn.
like a really
Close to
So,
Okay, we're getting away here. I don't want to
Yeah.
get too far afield.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
there you go.
That one.
So in the beginning there was light. Light was the sun, S-O-N.
And how did that become? Well,
Right.
S-O-N, but S-U-N, yeah.
And the S-U-N was created day 4.
Right. But light, how is light created? And you alluded to it.
Well, in Genesis verse
How
three,
how did light come into being?
God.
God
what
just
did he
said it.
do?
He spoke it.
Spoke it.
He spoke it, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
And I can't find the exact verse, it's in the neighborhood, but anyway, in Romans 10, 9, and 10, that, here we go. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you profess your faith and are saved. And shortly before or after this, and I can't find it, I'm not going to take time to, but there is a verse that talks about speaking things into reality.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We need to understand, do you understand how significant that is?
Mhm.
That when we speak things by faith, they become reality. That is part, we are created in the image of God, and God is a creator. And that is part of your reflection of God in your life. That's not what made that guy fall out of his chair, but that's a pretty profound thought, if you ask me. Another one, and this is what made him fall out of his chair, was, can the devil get saved?
No, he's an angel created being.
What does that have to do with anything?
I don't think that there's a soul that can be saved.
Okay, that's interesting.
I think he could, but God already knows his choice. His choice isn't going to change. Just like
Okay.
he already knows now and then, he already knows what he's going to do.
But even if he did change, could he get saved?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I mean, people in hell don't get a second chance.
What?
Most, like,
People in hell don't get a second chance.
Okay.
no, I mean.
Somebody over
never
here,
would.
what did you say? Somebody said something? Did my left ear malfunction? Okay. I'm gonna shorten this because it is important. Do you remember in Genesis chapter 3, God had a conversation. After they had the conversation with Adam and Eve and the serpent, he said, we have to get these guys out of here, lest they eat of the tree of life and become like us and live forever. So they then put them outside of the garden and put an angel there and a sword flashing back and forth to keep them from getting back in. Now, what was the big deal? They had already partaken of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which they weren't supposed to do. That was the only restriction that God gave Adam. But what they didn't want is for them to partake of the tree of life and therefore become eternally in that state and therefore beyond redemption. The reason the devil can't get saved is they are already eternal beings and therefore nobody can die in their place. That's the big deal. He fell out of his chair. It was kind of funny. Oh, wow, I never thought of it like that before. But it's so simple, but it's so profound. We reflect God in who we are. And we need to understand the power of words that we have. So you have to be careful when you say stuff. I know your parents are so careful with how you say stuff to your kids. You never get angry with them, right? Never mind.
Oh, we
Okay.
don't have to.
It was a trick question.
And that's why, in a relationship, you can't, if you're gonna speak something negative about that individual, you're gonna metastasize that into reality.
And that's the problem.
And the vice versa. You have to make the decision on a daily basis to love that individual, love being a decision and an action word, no matter what.
Right.
And you've got to positively state, I love my spouse because of,
Right.
and I'm choosing to love them today.
Exactly. And God made that same choice. Okay, just real quick, I'm going to summarize these last two statements. We kind of covered the plain statements in Genesis, right? You can read them, but we kind of touched on them. The fiat creation has no problem with the order and the state in which the universe is created. Death, decay, and the fall, according to Big Bang cosmology, the solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago, swirling out of primeval nebula. Then life began a billion or so years later. This is the timeline you were asking about.
Yeah, it is.
Gradually, life developed over time, progressing and evolving until modern humans popped up a couple of million years later. Of course, that's why I said billions down into millions.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, this means there were hundreds of millions of years of death, carnage, and disease prior to the arrival of human beings. Even theistic proponents of the Big Bang model must accept the fact that animal death was the norm prior to the arrival of a human being. There were no animal rights activists at the beginning. The Bible is clear, however, that death is the result of Adam's sin. And that's really the bottom line. Okay.
And death not just in people, but all of creation.
All of creation.
All of creation.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions, any comments?
Just a quick comment, Isaiah 57:15, like, goes into what you were talking about, God inhabiting eternity. I think it's really amazing just to be able to see it in God's Word. Thanks for bringing that up.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the coin, remember the coin? There was a coin. It was in a fish's mouth, and Jesus said, hey, open that fish's mouth. What's in it? A coin. What's on the coin? A picture of Caesar. And what did he say? Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give unto God that which is God's. The image of Caesar is on a coin. The image of God is on you. You belong to God. Father, in Jesus' name, thank you for this time together. I pray that you would help us to be mindful that we are more than coins. We reflect you wherever we go. Help us, Lord, with this information to be able to understand it, to be able to share it when the time is right. And we just give you praise and glory. I pray for the service, that you would be there, prepare hearts and minds to receive from you, that you would speak to lives and transform lives. Be with the worship team, pastor as he delivers a message, and I just thank you for all that you do. We give you praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, thank you guys.
Yay.